Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Billy, and I'm one of the sponsor coordinators for the Red Team Village. Today, I'm here with Horizon 3, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about just some general red teaming trends, but we're also going to highlight some of the services and offerings that Horizon 3 provides. This year, Horizon 3 is a platinum sponsor of the Red Team Village at DEF CON. So first off, thank you, gentlemen, for that. Obviously, the Red Team Village depends on the support of sponsors, and we couldn't do it without you. So we are incredibly grateful. And again, thanks on behalf of the entire Red Team Village. And then today, we're really excited to have a chance to talk about you and learn more about what Horizon 3 offers. I know a little bit about it just from previous discussions, but I'm excited to share this with the community. So before we get into the interview questions, I just want to pass it over to you gentlemen to introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, James. You can go first.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Horseman. I'm a attack engineer and exploit developer over at Horizon 3, primarily responsible for researching and weaponizing O-Day and N-Day vulnerabilities and integrating them into our product. And then I'm also responsible for the development of our custom remote access tool. Go ahead, Tony.
Nice. I'm Tony P. I'm the co-founder here at Horizon 3. Spent 21 years in the military, most of that time in kind of the black world organizations, but that really means just selectively manned units with highly sensitive mission sets, and spent quite a bit of time in the Joint Special Operations Command. Created the initial capability of the product of Node Zero, and then right now I'm focused on leading sales engineering, customer success, renewals, and training and enablement teams, and driving those capabilities forward. So working very closely with the product and the engineering team, and now community as well. So looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having us.
I'm Philip Wiley. I've been in cybersecurity for over 20 years and offensive security for over 12. I'm a former adjunct instructor. I used to teach pen testing at Dallas College. At Horizon 3, I work on the customer success team as well as working in community. My customers are partners, consulting companies, MSPs and MSPs, and help them get the most out of the product.
Fantastic. Thank you all for that. Tony, James, good to see you. And Philip, obviously your name is pretty well known in the community, so glad to have you here as well. So we'll get right into the interview questions. Starting out, how is red teaming impacting Horizon 3 and just the industry writ large? What kind of trends are you seeing, and what direction are you guys headed?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. I think red teaming and OffSec in general has really been the answer to a lot of problems that we have in cybersecurity. And the challenge there is it just hasn't been scalable. There aren't enough OffSec people. There aren't enough hacker mindsets. There aren't enough folks who are looking at really prioritizing and highlighting the things that an attacker is going to take advantage of. And so red teaming and pen testing was kind of like the key inspiration for me putting together Node Zero and the product that we put together. And it's the concept of an offense-driven defense is the way of the future. And so from a how is it impacting us? It is the reason we are here. It is the reason that Horizon 3 has been so successful, because we're taking all the things that the red team community and the pen testing community and the offset community has been shouting from the rooftops that this is the way that these are the things we need to fix. And it's the most effective way to really secure an organization. It's the reason we're here. So that's how red team is impacting us. And the industry is now ready for that to be more readily accessible for all organizations, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great, Tony. I picked up on a term you used there. You said offense-driven defense. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Yeah, think about there's 265,000 CVEs. James, how many of those are really useful to an attacker?
Not a whole lot. There's that are, an attacker attacker wants to get remote code execution primarily, and then from there, there's a whole bunch of ones that might require user interaction, might just be priv-esque. There's a lot of CVEs that really wouldn't be a top priority for me if I were responsible for fixing them in my organization.
Yeah, it's the key component there is prioritization. I spent 30 years in IT operations, and prioritization. What's the phrase that I spent a third of my career saying is that's a false positive. That's a false positive. That thing is that module that's mentioned in that CVE. Is it even on that system? Why am I, as an IT operator, wasting my time trying to fix this thing? And prioritization has been, a key component to it. The risk, if you boil it down, is likelihood and impact. There's nothing in the stack right now that tells you likelihood. You could say all day that the CVSS score does. It's a theoretical understanding of it. It's based on like research understanding versus actually performing the exploitation. Exploitation is a means to an end. So if you can't exploit it, you don't know the likelihood in the context of your environment. If you're not taking what that exploit can provide you, credentials, priv-esque, lateral movement, information, data, whatever, and using that to an impact. How have we really been, as organizations, calculating risk for the last 40 years? We've been doing it wrong. And the offset community is the ones who've been saying you have to go through the entire attack chain to really understand where to prioritize. So that's what I say, an offense-driven defense. That's what I'm talking about.
And to kind of add to the comments, just the automation, the autonomous pen testing that Horizon 3 offers was what drew me here, because based on my experience working at a large bank, we did infrastructure pen testing of some web app for PCI. We had a 13-person team, but we weren't getting through half of the pen tests each year. And if we had a product like this, it would be able to scale us more. We had some automation. We had wrapper scripts, running different tools that would upload the output to Nessus, do a Nessus scan to do some automation, but it just really wasn't enough. And it's just, one of the things I say about Node Zero, it's like one of the next evolutions in pen testing, because at one time we didn't have vulnerability scanners. We didn't have things like the Metasploit framework. You had to do a lot of this stuff manually, and it just made sense to automate and get into more autonomous testing. So this is where I think this is really going to help scale a lot of teams. And this is not only for internal folks, it's also very helpful for consulting companies as well.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that description, Tony and Phil. That's fantastic. So knowing a little bit about what the product does, right? I picked it up through the discussion here, some autonomous pen testing. What is kind of the vision for Horizon 3, and where do you see yourselves leading or shifting the industry?
Yeah, we started off, we have 3 horizons, Horizon 3, just to give a sense of where that term comes from. Snehal Antani, who is my co-founder and our CEO, brilliant visionary. He said he wanted to call us cyber warriors. And I was like, that's not a good name. We're not going to call ourselves cyber warriors. I said, we are a disruption. This is completely new. This is a new capability. And he said, well, there are 3 horizons in business. I can't remember the full thing, but there are 3 horizons in business. The first horizon is current capabilities. Second horizon is incremental change to those capabilities. Think about vulnerability scanning in, let's say, Insight VM. Insight VM, we had vulnerability scanning, and then Insight VM came in and mapped Metasploit framework exploits to a vulnerability scan, right? So that's incremental change. It's a great step forward. Horizon 3 is the disruption. It's the opening of new capabilities, new possibilities, and looking at the problem in a completely different way and skipping over, these incremental changes and completely disrupting the industry. So right now, our Horizon 1 for H3 has been the most trusted autonomous pen testing capability there is. We're driving towards that. Horizon 2 we're expanding from being just a autonomous pen testing, but taking this understanding of the offensive context, what is an attacker going to take advantage of, taking that and moving into a platform that allows you to integrate more capabilities, integrate additional assets and additional value around what the OffSec capability provides you, and the orchestration of all of these tools and capabilities that threat actors are using, and malware's using, and pen testers and red teamers are using, and expanding that. So that's the next stage. So now we're looking at we have a capability called rapid response, which is this integration of emerging threats and understanding all of the fingerprints that we're capturing as part of as part of the normal attack chain. We can see all those fingerprints and do analysis on those. And as emerging threats are coming out, we will be able to tell you when you are susceptible to an emerging threat. And our team, James and Zach and Naveen and our threat research team are analyzing these threats that are coming out and saying, this is something that's going to be very valuable to attackers, and we need to close the gap on the time frame from when these things come out to when our customers know about it. So we can use that data and analyze it, and then what's the first thing that a CISO is going to ask their team, or a security leader is going to ask their team, is going to be, are we susceptible? They see it in the news, they get a feed about it. Hey, this thing is really bad. Are we susceptible to that? We're going to make it so that organizations know about it and can push that information up versus waiting for that question to come down. And it's a hugely valuable proposition. As soon as a new threat comes out and a POC is available, about 2 weeks, you're going to see like exploitation in the wild. And that time frame is getting faster and faster and faster as, threat researchers and organizations and these really incredible people are creating these proofs of concept and sharing them with the world. It's always that double-edged sword that we have in our community. Threat actors are scooping those things up and automatically adding them into their malware. They're adding them into their automation and their AI capabilities. It's a little bit of hype there, but their capabilities to expand their reach and do more spray and pray and target organizations faster. So we're taking the same approach, but we're doing it from a defensive perspective and making it accessible to our organization. So we think there's a significant amount of value there. Continue to expand on reporting and, moving up the chain. We focused on the tech side of it, focused on the product and the actual core value that we provide. And that's maneuvering, having a system that maneuvers the way an attacker is going to maneuver inside the environment, makes decisions the way an attacker or a malware is going to make decisions in the environment. Now we're shifting focus slightly so that we can also take care of the CISOs so that they can translate the impacts, the likelihood and the impact that we've discovered so that organizations and their leadership can understand about it. I think that's one of the big problems from an OffSec world that we've struggled with, is translating that to the business side of the house. We're really good at finding things and highlighting this is what an attacker is going to take advantage of, and there's risk here. But translating that to the business side of the house, how many times have you guys done pen tests and then you come back the next year and the same things are there? It happens all the time. Yeah, so we make it continuous. We make it available on a regular basis. You push a button, it does its thing, and you get the outputs. Now that's kind of the direction that we're going.
Okay, yeah, that's illuminating. I know I've certainly had that that happened to me, where I've done a test and the next year it's the same, and the challenge becomes translating that risk. And really, we talk about, Tony, you and I have talked before about, both coming from the JSOC world, and you talk about the left of bang. It's hard to get left of bang because you just don't have that likelihood of an attack. But once someone is attacked, being able to provide those indicators of whether or not your organization is vulnerable to that same attack would certainly be helpful. So that's very interesting. I like the way you guys where you're headed with that. Shifting gears a little bit. So, you guys are obviously at the forefront and looking at, integrating a capability that not a lot of folks have yet. But how do you see red teaming and threat emulation also making that transition and, being able to do, not necessarily the autonomous pen testing thing, but to take that same mindset and shift it into conducting those red team type exercises?
Go ahead, Phil. You take this one.
Yes, you're able to take some of the attacks we have and use those specific types of attacks against organizations to emulate more of a red team type of exercise. And one of the things too, you see like in some of the BaaS products, all they're going to do is run certain things. They're not going to do any kind of exploitation. You're going to see whether they're able to happen that or not, if it's able to be pulled off, as well as things that are similar to some of the scripts out there that run it. There's not a payload. It just tests signatures. So we actually test actual attacks and what's possible past that, instead of just doing like your typical BaaS exercise or purple team exercise.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think there is what automation and this orchestration that is made possible by what we're building is really going to raise the bar for the pen testing community, the red teaming community. So I think what we'll see happen is, as this approach and this philosophy that we're driving becomes the staple of a good security posture, you'll see red teamers and pen testers kind of that bar is going to raise, because Node Zero and this capability is going to take a lot of that work off of them that would normally take them a long time to do, the fundamentals of the full attack chain. And now they're going to be able to dive even deeper. So what's going to happen is red teams and pen testers are going to get into the things that can't be automated. I know that I have had to do, like, I'll say it, wild ass guesses on a particular box, and like just try something that's like, man, maybe it'll be there. Let me try this. Those things are going to become um, more inference, more creativity, and thinking even further outside of the box, because we've raised the bar. Is kind of where I think the community is going to go. It's going to get a whole lot more creative, which is the things that a machine can't do, but humans can, and will be very complementary to that.
Yeah, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've heard Snehal refer to that as the human machine pairing or human machine interface. I've heard him talk
Yeah,
quite a bit about that. So,
yeah. The idea of it's human machine teaming
there you
is
go.
is
Yeah.
is his phraseology, and it's absolutely right. Algorithm versus algorithm, human machine teaming, and this, it's going to continue to grow. There's a lot of hype in large language models, and there's all kinds of stuff about it, but there's capabilities that are possible, that are going to shift how all of us in the tech world operate, and we need to use it to our advantage, and drive it in the right direction, versus like everybody, the content on the internet. I can't stand social media. The only reason I have a LinkedIn account is because I'm in business, but um, it's all becoming, Snehal calls it the great sameness. Like, everybody's just generate me a post, generate me a video, generate me all this stuff. Yeah.
Yep, it's gotten a little bit shameless for sure. So I have to ask this. I'm going off script. You have to forgive me for this, but I have to ask. So, kind of historically, what I've understood of Node Zero is it is a purely pen testing platform. It makes a lot of noise. It's meant to find everything. Do you guys have anything on your roadmap to kind of move into more of that traditional red teaming space and work with that human machine teaming to figure out a red teaming solution that's similar?
Yeah, if you take the launch script, and it's super easy to break apart, and you can take a look at it. We're very transparent about everything that we're running and how it's operating. If you take a look at the launch script and look at the actual config that gets pulled down every time you run a Node Zero pen test, you'll see that aggressiveness is a configuration option. When we originally started, we said, well, we're going to want to do that. We put that in there, and we started working with it. And for our first couple of customers, we found that they were getting so much value out of it not being incredibly overt, and they were validating that their logs were logging the way that they were supposed to log. They were validating that the alerts that they had configured as part of their SIEM were firing the way that they were supposed to. They were validating that their tools that were supposed to be blocking things were blocking things or not. And in most cases, mid-market organizations, smaller organizations who have just an small IT ops team, and they don't have a defensive capability or anywhere near an offensive capability. They were getting so much value out of the loudness of it because they were able to take that as a good understanding of what was going on in their environment, what they were missing, and what blind spots they had outside of just understanding the exploitability within their environment. So it's some of the goodness that comes from breach and attack simulation and those approaches, but focusing on the offset, the offense-driven defense approach that was made possible. So we hadn't prioritized that additional layer of defense by going quieter, but we are having more organizations ask for it. It's not a specific roadmap item, but it is something that we are absolutely have on the table to figure out where and when to put that in there.
Yeah, that's great. Great to hear. Certainly, I'm just making up random statistics, but certainly from my experience, 90% of organizations are not ready for red teaming. And red teaming objectives are often different, right? It's like to exercise response procedures and things, not necessarily to find vulnerabilities. So glad to hear that that's something that is at least being thought about, because eventually your customers are going to mature and they're going to ask for that. So good to hear that. So okay, next, just looking for advice from you guys, right? As industry leaders, like what words of advice do you have to red teamers out there? That any suggestions you have or advice on how they can maybe integrate Horizon 3 into the things that they're doing, more specifically Node Zero, and just kind of where you think they should look if they're interested in your company.
From individual contributor perspective, I am often asked, what kind of things can I do to up my skill level as a red teamer, as a pen tester, as an exploit developer. And I often get questions along the lines of, what certification should I get? What tools should I look at? And I'll often recommend to those people who ask me those questions to kind of ignore a lot of that noise and focus on the fundamentals of how computers work, how cybersecurity works. What are those things that underlie all of the tools that we use every day? I'm not a traditional red teamer or pen tester, but I've had the privilege to speak at previous DEF CONs and compete at Pwn to Own and had reasonable success there. And I haven't really ever focused on certifications or a lot of the tools out there that claim to train you to be like a great hacker or exploit developer. But what I have always tried to do is focus on the fundamentals of how computers work, focus on the fundamentals of networking. And what that allows you to do is kind of understand what all of these tools are built on. So you don't have to worry about the minutia of any individual tool or framework or learn about all the different bugs and the ways that you can use them. Having this fundamental understanding kind of lets you use those tools and figure them out a lot faster than somebody who kind of just memorized the commands that you have to run to get this certain thing to work. That would be the advice I give to individual contributors. And then also for red teaming as a whole, I think Horizon and Node Zero is going to transform red teams from more practitioners, for lack of a better word, to more researchers. Tony kind of touched on this earlier, of Node Zero just raising the bar and Horizon 3 raising the bar and allowing red teams to do more with less, and allowing junior developers to do things that only advanced developers or red teamers could do in the past. And it's just going to free up a lot of time for these red teamers to get a lot of the basic, intermediate, and even some of the advanced stuff out of the way with Node Zero, and allow them to laser focus on something that's very specific for their client. Maybe their clients have custom web apps that aren't seen in the wild, or there's something very specific about their network setup that is just not something that any tool would be able to normally figure out. So I'm thinking that Node Zero is going to allow red teamers to become less practitioners and less enter these 5 commands to do these 5 things, and more of researchers and value critical thinking abilities to think of unique and novel ways that you can exploit a customer's environment.
Yeah, I really like that. Like there's a lot of different ways to get into pen testing, and Philip is no stranger to this because he literally wrote the book on it. And I only say that because I read the book when I was trying to break into the industry myself. So, Philip, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that question.
Sure, to give some thoughts directly and say, as James mentioned, you need the basics because when I was starting out as a pen tester, I had over 6 years worth of sysadmin experience, network security experience, and AppSec experience before I moved into pen testing. So, education wise and training, things like the OSCP course, uh, Try Hack Me is a really good entry level course to start educating yourself on. And then once you get some skills and ready for more advanced stuff, then Hack the Box and Hack the Box Academy are good places to learn. They've even recently, I think, added like some OT stuff to it. Uh, they've also got, web app pen testing, network pen testing. They have their offshore labs, and another one, speaking red team specific, the 0 Point security course is really good because they even include Cobalt Strike. They have a license to Cobalt Strike, so you can actually do actual real red teaming, actual adversary emulation, and not necessarily pen testing.
Yeah, the Red Team Operations course. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
course. A lot of our folks are doing that this year. Okay, yeah, that's great advice. I love to hear it. So, based on that advice, from open to anybody, at what point, as folks progress and become individual contributors and start to build their skill set, at what point should they be, talking to their bosses about integrating Horizon 3 into their workflow?
I think that's a key differentiation for us, and part of the core of why we built what we built. And that is, if you look at how we developed it, we are transparent. Every command that is run, you could recreate the entire attack path through the action logs that we provide you. And part of the reason we put that in there, one, was for deconfliction, to make sure everybody understood the exact things that were going on, but also to help lift the kind of the black magic fog that is over offensive security. A lot of IT operations folks, they don't know what they're building to defend against. Defensive folks, they rely heavily on their tools and the outputs of the tools that they have, so they don't really understand the what's actually happening underneath the covers. And so providing that as a very transparent, I wanted to make that part of it. Education and lifting the black magic off of OffSec was a key component of how we built the product and why we built the product, so that this philosophy can thrive and can be accessible. So I would say, like, we have IT ops interns for organizations who run the product from start to finish. Set it up, run multiple pen tests a year, multiple pen tests a month. We have organizations that went from one pen test, annual pen test for compliance reasons, to over 100 pen tests from multiple perspectives a year. And the IT ops interns run that from start to finish. They run the pen test. They fix things that are found as part of because with all the fix actions and the fix action reporting that are in there, and then they run verify operations targeted to those those exploitable weaknesses within the environment. And they do that over and over and over again. We call it the find, fix, verify loop. And this really cuts down on this. I'm a pen tester. I come back a year later and the same things are still there that are exploitable and are bad for you. You need to fix those. It changes changes the game. So I would say, at what point should an organization, or a young pen tester, a junior pen tester, somebody who is even in IT operations, take a look at this? I would say start today. We do a free trial. We do you run it as many times as you want. You get full access to the product for 30 days. And if you hit me up, hit up the guys at the booth at DEF CON. We don't have a booth at DEF CON, but we'll be around. We got people who are going to be there. We'll get you, not for resale license. I want to educate more people on the philosophy. I'm not here to sell a product. I'm here to sell a philosophy. Product is just the way that we make it happen. So
Yeah, that's great. Sell the philosophy, the product will sell itself. So
yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. Any final words that you guys would like to share, either to the broader red teaming community or to folks specific to DEF CON? Tony, you already extended the invitation there for folks to be on the lookout for Horizon 3 t-shirts and talk to folks. But any other final words?
I'll jump in. I would say I love how James kind of shaped it and Phil shaped it as focusing on the fundamentals. A lot of people that come to me, they want to get into cybersecurity or they want to get into IT ops. They say, well, I don't have any experience. I can't get experience if I don't have a job. They, that kind of chicken before the egg, kind of the chicken and the egg kind of thing. And the way that I kind of push back on it is, one, this is the technology world and it's continuously changing. And there are multiple resources and open source capabilities that allow you to manufacture and create your own experience however you need to. There are open source SIEMs, there are open source firewalls, there are open source defensive capabilities, there are plenty of open source offensive capabilities, and you can, I push on Proxbox and virtualization and using Docker and understanding the fundamentals of routing and switching, the network side of the house. You can and should go in and search those things out and just start. In this world, especially the OffSec world, the notion of try harder, that adage that we have, don't come ask me a question. You need to just try harder. Or I'm a big video game player. Go get good, and then it's like, how do I get good? You get good by just getting good. Put the work in, put that effort in, search it out. There is too much information on the internet for anybody to say that I can't get experience in IT ops, defense, or offense. You can do it.
Absolutely. And that is certainly a trend that has changed, right? I think there was a time where there was a lot of gatekeeping and people kept things a secret, but having everything available, all the resources to learn, and the approach that Horizon 3 is taking with just sharing everything that the tool is doing so you can understand it and learn, and you can go back and run the tools yourself and experiment. That is a fantastic way to close that gap in the offensive world, which Tony, you identified earlier. There's just not enough people. So between automation and that philosophy of making it available, that's the only way we're going to solve that challenge. So with that, I want to say thanks again on behalf of the entire Red Team Village. We are super excited to have you as a platinum sponsor. I look forward to seeing you guys out at DEF CON, hanging out in the village. We've got the party. We got a bunch of stuff this year that we've never done. So definitely looking forward to it and hope to see you guys out there. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thanks, brother. Really appreciate having you. Great job, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.